G'day, how are you doing today? We're going to be doing the Powerglide transmission today. We have a racing glide here. Customer's dropped off. He's going up in horsepower in his engine, so he wants to update the transmission with some updates. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to take it apart, and then we're going to apply all those updates, as in a Kevlar band, double ring servo, some other things that we're going to do to it. And we'll go through the valve body also and show you what the trans-brake valve body is all about. So get ready, we're about to disassemble. Okay, so I've got just one pan bolt holding the pan in. I've already taken the rest of them out. This is a TCI aluminum pan. I'm going to keep all my parts in the pan for now. I would suggest getting a plastic bucket and keep the interior and exterior bolts separate. Turn it around so you can see it here. I'm going to go ahead and just take the filter off. A couple of bolts that hold it on. This has the spacer because of the deep aluminum pan. There's actually an aluminum spacer between the filter and the valve body. You can see here, that's the aluminum spacer. There's a gasket on each side. And we're going to go ahead and take these 4 bolts off here, these 3 bolts here. We're going to remove this bolt because it holds the spring for the detent lever. And we're going to take these 2 bolts off here because there's the alignment place for the shift linkage. Just be careful when you're taking this apart because there is some short bolts and some long bolts. Try to be aware. I just paused the video while I took the remaining bolts out. So we've got the alignment plate. We have this bolt here. It just has a spring that goes down and keeps tension on the linkage that goes to the rooster comb. See, it's a small spring that pulls up on it. And then there's just a tube here. You want to get a screwdriver and tie it up. Now there is a solenoid, trans-brake solenoid in the back. If you haven't pulled it up, you can just pull it forward. You'll see the valve right here. It goes in the valve body. Okay, to remove the band, there's just a lock nut on the Allen adjusting screw right here that adjusts the band. You just want to back that lock nut off and get an Allen key and back that adjustment right out. Take all the tension off of these struts for the band themselves. Now once it's come to there, that's as far as you have to take it. Then there's a small strut here on the servo side. That's the small one. And then there's a larger one here, which we're going to take out once we get the pump out. Okay, I removed the pump bolts. There are 2 threaded holes here in the pump. If you have a pump puller, you can go ahead and, or a slide hammer, some type of slide hammer, you can go ahead and install that and pull the pump out. Sometimes you can get it behind it and just give it a whack. If it hasn't been in there for a long time, it'll come out fairly easy. That's the input shaft. This is a racing model with a turbo input spline. We're going to show you the differences between the stock and the upgraded models. That's the pump itself. There's an O-ring around the pump. And there's also a gasket here in the case. Now that other strut we were talking about, that's the large one. It goes on the adjustment side. And then you have your band. That's one of the updates we're going to be doing to this transmission. We're putting a racing Kevlar band in it. We're just going to go ahead and pull this out. Looks like in this, the drum is actually stuck onto the gear set. So we're just going to go ahead and pull the whole thing out. And that's the gear set here. This is a 176 gear set. There's also a 182 gear set. They're both stock gear sets. Okay, I had a little bit of problems getting the drum out of the gear set. Looks like there was a Torrington bearing here that was a problem. So we're going to probably have to replace this reaction plate. It's gotten burned up. We'll go ahead and pull the clutches out of the drum. Snap ring on the reaction plate. Reaction plate will come off. You have your clutch hub in here. And there's also a spacer in there. Almost like a thrust washer in here. Right here. And then you have your wetting band. It goes up in the reaction plate. Splines onto the input shaft. You have your clutch pack. As you can see, these are brand new, hardly been used. Then you have your, next we have the ring gear, splined into the reverse clutches for the gear set. This just goes on the gear set. So, and splines into the rear clutches here. You see these splines. And then there's another thrust washer in the drum here. And this is where the clutch hub rides on that in the drum. This splines to the clutches. And then also splines to the input shaft. This is a racing clutch hub. I'll show you the differences between the stock and the racing one. Okay, we're going to take the piston out of the drum now. You're going to need a spring compressor tool. You can make them yourself, or you can buy one. They're about $40. Just use 1/4 inch steel. Drill a hole in it with a long bolt. And then you can make your own tool to press on the spring retainer. The retainer that holds the snap ring in. All you want to do is look where the opening of the spring snap ring is in the spring retainer. We're just going to press down on that retainer, which will push on the springs and allow us to take that snap ring out. Once you get it down enough, then you can take some snap ring pliers. I like to use 90-degree ones. Release that snap ring. You have your snap ring, spring retainer. You're going to have a series of springs. There's two sets of springs. You have the springs for the rear clutch and springs in the drum itself. These are the smaller springs. You can go ahead and take your piston out. And in the drum there's a seal here. And then there's an outer seal on the piston itself. And they're both lip seals. And then there's a large snap ring that holds the rear clutches in. You have to get a screwdriver in there. You might have to get a small pick with a 90-degree on it to go up when you pull it out to give it a pull forward. That's a large snap ring. And then you have your rear clutch pack with the large reaction plate out. As you can see, these clutches are like new. Okay, on this transmission actually we have a solenoid for the trans brake. It just screws in where on the stock one where a modulator would go. It's just an electric solenoid that is applied by a button, which goes in and pushes on the valve in the valve body, and in turn it locks it into reverse and first gear at the same time, which literally locks the car solid. I've gone ahead and pulled the extension housing bolts off. There's 5 of them in the back. Then you have a governor support. Now on a stock Powerglide, where the input shaft comes through here, there would be a governor that would fit on the with a set of rings, and it would have a pin going through the output shaft. On a stock Powerglide, naturally for a racing one, we don't use any of that. All we do is we use the support here in the back, which in turn has a bushing for the output shaft. And now there is an updated model of this you can purchase with it actually a bearing in it. So there is 4 bolts that hold it on. In the bottom you'll see a little shield here. That's just a shield that deflects oil. So you want to make sure you put that back on. Now there is an O-ring around the support here for the extension housing. You see it here. Just goes around the perimeter. And then the support itself. Now there is an earlier transmission which had a rear pump. I'm going to show you the differences between those also. And then there's a gasket here that goes in the back between the case and the support. And we're going to go through all the updates that we have to do to the case here for a trans brake. We'll go through all that with you. Okay, I've gone ahead and installed the spring compressor to compress the spring retainer for the rear piston. Again, we need to release that snap ring in there. Then we can go ahead and back that tool off. This is also one of the updates we're going to be doing. We're going to be putting a much stronger spring retainer and stiffer springs for the trans brake in here. Okay, so there's a snap ring, a spring retainer, and a series of springs that sits on the piston. We want to go ahead and remove all those. Again, these are the larger of the springs. The ones in the drum are much smaller. You can see they have little pockets that they sit in onto the piston. Now these are stock springs. We're going to be replacing them with some stiffer racing ones. Okay, to remove the rear piston, you'll see a little horseshoe here with a hole. You'll see a hole next to it. If you just take a blowgun with air and just give it a shot, it'll remove that, blow that piston in the back of the case. And that's the rear piston here. And it has two seals, one on the inner, one on the outer, and they're a non-lip seal. Okay, this is the servo that applies the band. I've gone ahead and taken the 3 bolts out. They're just 9/16 bolts. You can go ahead and pull that cover off. Now on the cover there's a gasket, and there's also an O-ring in here. And it fits tight in there, so you may have to just work it out. Okay, that's the cover, gasket, and an O-ring. And this is the servo here. This is also an update that we're going to do. We're going to be applying, if you can see, this has 1 ring on it. We're going to be putting a dual ring servo in it, which this is the racing one. So you can see it has 2 rings on it. And by doing that, what it does is, under high horsepower applications, with the trans brake on, the case can actually flex. And if it does flex, this servo leaks, and in turn, it can burn out the clutches in the drum. So that's very important. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take the pump apart. There's 5 bolts. What I've done is I've just taken the extension housing and set the pump in here. Kind of fits in there perfect, makes a nice little holder. Now these bolts are identified, they have 5 lines around them. So you want to keep them separate. On the pump, there's a thrust washer here. It's made of brass. And you have 2 sealing rings here that seal in the drum. These are a metal sealing ring. We're also going to be updating all the rings to Teflon rings, so there's no wear on the drums. This is a stator. Now if you can see, there is a bushing in the end of this. It supports the output shaft. Now on a stock Powerglide there is no bushing in here. Because we put a turbo input shaft in here, and the torque converter doesn't have a support bushing in it, then you have to put a bushing here in the stator to support the output shaft. You want to check the pump. Make sure there's no grooving. Minor grooving is okay, that's alright. Now also we've got some brand new pump gears that we're going to put in this pump. Well, we've got it apart. We've just adapted to go ahead and do that while it's apart. That's the pump gears. Now the tang on the inner gear always goes up this way. Some of them are marked with markings on them. They may have a triangle mark on the gears, which also tells you that's the up position. This is the pump body. You want to inspect where the gears ride in here. Any heavy gouging, it's on this. Not very good at all. We might have to replace that. There's also a bushing in here. You want to make sure that bushing is okay. If not, go ahead and get it replaced. Okay, we're going to go ahead and disassemble the valve body. I've taken all the bolts out just to save time. You have your manual valve. You have the valve at the back with the solenoid applies for the trans brake, and there's a spring on the inside of it. Remove the last bolt. Now this is a trans brake valve body. There are kits that you can buy and make your own. I'm going to show you a little bit about that on the assembly video, because there's some machining that has to be done to the valve bodies and to the halves of the valve bodies. There's some milling that has to be done, and we're gonna go over that with you in the assembly video. Okay, so as you can see, it's not a very complicated transmission. We're going to get everything cleaned up, inspect all the parts very close, make sure that everything's in good shape. We're going to get brand new gasket and seal kit. Our clutches are in good shape, we don't need anything there. And we're going to show you the updates that we're going to do to it. We're going to be doing another DVD just on the rebuild itself. So hope to see you then. See ya.